Perfect. Okay, Maria, please take it away.
Thank you, Ben. So good morning, everybody. On behalf of SUR and the Hellenic Institute of Transport, we are leading REFOCUS project. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. As you may already know, REFOCUS is an Interreg Europe project that exchanges experiences in decision support tools and methodologies for decision-making in zero-carbon sustainable mobility. This is the first of the series of webinars organized as part of the project, and Ben from Polis will give you more information right away. I would like to say many thanks to our speakers and, of course, Polis, Marco, and Ben, who organized everything and will guide us through this webinar. Thank you all for taking the time to join us, and hope you enjoy this webinar. So back to you, Ben and Marco.
Thank you, Maria. So yes, as mentioned, this is the first in a 5-part series of webinars as part of the REFOCUS project. The aim of the webinars is to basically bring the good practices that have been identified in the project to a wider public-facing audience. And we have a rough agenda for the next, well, I believe it's 2 years of these webinars taking place. This is subject to change. However, as you well know, for this first session, we'll be looking at stakeholder engagement and institutional cooperation in sustainable mobility planning. Next, we'll be looking at data-driven decision-making, which is a key pillar of the REFOCUS project. That will then be followed by data-driven approaches in multimodal transport and public transport integration. And then digital twins, transport and traffic modeling, and that includes concepts, principles, and their application. And then finally, we'll probably take some feedback at that stage and work out what would be the best way to see out the end of the series towards the end of the project, after all of our study visits and exchange sessions that are taking place between the project partners. So I think that's a good overview as to what's in store for the rest of the series. And I think for that being said, I'll pass over to you, Marco, for the beginning.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben. Without further ado, I will just give the floor to our first presentation from St. Nicholas, Belgium. That's Wim Nick. So Wim, please feel free to start.
Okay, good morning, everybody. You all hear me? You all see my presentation loud and clearly? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the floor. And good morning. My name is Wim Nick. I'm a mobility advisor at the city of St. Nicholas, a city in the northern part of Belgium, the northern part of Flanders, close to the Dutch border. And our city has approximately 83,000 inhabitants. In my presentation, I will elaborate on 2 examples where citizen participation has been integrated. The first example will take about, more or less 80% of my presentation time, and it concerns the traffic situation in a local neighborhood that we want to change in collaboration with the local citizens, with the residents. The second example is how we will integrate participation from various target groups, so not only citizens, in the development of our new local mobility plan, not only in our new plan, but how I will explain a little more how we did it in our current mobility plan. So let's start with the first case. I will present this case in a rather atypical way, because as the title mentions, there are always 2 sides to every story. So basically, I will tell the same story twice, but from a totally different perspective. First of all, we have, or I will describe the process purely objectively. What are the facts? What are the data? So the data approach. And then I will take you through the same process again, but focusing on the other side, the citizen participation. And there you'll see it's the same project, but a totally different point of view, where you meet perception, emotion, personal situation, etc. So let's start with the data approach. What are we talking about? A little context. We're talking about a residential neighborhood. You see on the right-hand side. So for over a year, that neighborhood or the neighborhood committee has been reporting to us two things. They face a lot of cut-through traffic and excessive speeding. And therefore, the city of Sint-Niklaas has decided to reconsider the current traffic situation in the 4 streets of the neighborhood, focusing on road safety and livability of the neighborhood. This is a residential area we are talking about. 4 streets have been designed as a 30-kilometer zone for several years now. But the roads are very wide, so they still invite speeding and cut-through traffic to avoid the traffic lights on the main road network. So you see here on the right-hand side, the black axis, the black roads are the main roads with the traffic lights here. And the main traffic comes from the north and wants to go to the south because the city center is located more or less here. So instead of waiting for the traffic lights, they take a ride here. They step on the gas, the streets are wide, so they race through the local neighborhood and they take a ride here to enter the city center a little bit further. So our goal is, of course, or our goal was to eliminate that cut-through traffic, to reduce speed of motorized traffic to what it's supposed to do, to the 30 kilometers per hour. And in combination with the fact that we want to ensure maximum accessibility for the residents. How did we do that? Through data, of course. That's why what the REFOCUS project is all about. I will not go much into technical details during this session. I think there is time enough during the rest of the project to go into the technical details. I will focus on some parts. For example, on the right-hand side, you see a local citizen that has installed the device, attached it to the window, face to the street, connected it to the power supply and activated an account, and the device starts counting. What does it do, or what did we do through that device? We studied and monitored traffic intensity, the modal splits, and the speed of motorized traffic, not only before the traffic adjustments, but also during and after the traffic adjustments. We installed, here you see, I think, 5 locations in the neighborhood where such a sensor was being installed, but we installed 9 in total. And like you see here at the bottom, the sensor, they track the traffic intensity, so how many pedestrians, bicycles, cars, or tractors or trucks pass through the street at a certain moment in time during the day, during the night, and how fast, what's the speed of the motorized traffic. Yeah, this is just a slide. I think the presentations, they are not only recorded, but they will be handed to the audience. Here you see how much a device costs, how much the software costs per month per device. So it's a quite cheap investment for a local authority to investigate the traffic intensity and then the speed of the passing traffic. But like I said, I will go more into detail on another occasion. Now, what were the implemented traffic adjustments? There were 3 of them. The first one is, like I said, it already was 30 kilometers per hour neighborhood, but we had to come with a stronger awareness campaigns and enforcement of the 30 kilometer zone. Previously, there were only 3 signs that indicated, oh, this is a 30 kilometer zone. So when entering the neighborhood, but maybe you've mentioned, you noticed that as well. People often overlook those signs, or when entering the neighborhood, they see those wide streets and they step on the gas and they hurry up from north to south, exceeding this with excessive speed. So there was more to be done, and therefore we produced those posters like on a A3 format. We ourselves as a city, we attached them to light posts, but we also provided every citizen with those posters, and they could hang it to their window, wall, mailbox, no matter where, in order to to let the cars and heavy traffic that was passing through notice, oh yes, a small reminder, this is and still is zone 30 kilometers an hour zone. We also painted the streets like crossings and other colorful signs in order to get more safety, especially there is a primary school in the middle of the neighborhood. So when there are crossings towards that school, we colored them, we painted the streets to get the attention of the drivers. Second traffic adjustment, a very effective one, is to introduce throughout the entire network one-way streets. So yes, you could still enter from the north, but no, you could no longer race until the south end and then take the main road again. All the traffic entering the local neighborhood has to exit through this road. So two entry points, one exit point. The third adjustment we made is we installed at the most dangerous points and locations in the neighborhood where the highest speeds were recorded. Some, like you see here on the visual, some greens, some temporary trees, forcing cars to zigzag and to reduce speeds. Now, what was the outcome of the data collected? Of course, there's more than just this graph, but like I said, more detailed information in another presentation. But we saw by collecting those data, by analyzing those data, that 3 streets out of 4 had a huge decrease of cars passing through. More than half of the cars that were passing through the neighborhood just disappeared. And the one street, there's this increase, the one street where motorized traffic had to exit the neighborhood, yes, there was a small increase in cars, but there was only 80 cars per day, and mainly during rush hour. So objectively, pure based on the data, you could say that's neglectable. That's hardly an increase. We also saw every street, not only the 3 main streets, but only the exit street and the street where you take to exit the neighborhood, that heavy transport is being reduced. Moreover, we saw that the 30-kilometer speed limit was respected. Cut traffic disappeared after the cut-through traffic disappeared after the interventions, and it had hardly no effect. No, it generated hardly additional traffic on the surrounding road network. So pure based on the data, we could say, okay, job well done, mission accomplished. But I think all of us, we know that mobility is not just a rational, objective matter. So let's take a look at the same story through the other perspective, meaning the participation approach. As a small introduction, in Flanders, we define 5 levels of citizen participation in policy making. Here you see the ladder, and the higher on the ladder, the more influence and impact citizens have in the process. So here you see the government steering approach, where a government makes the rules and makes the adjustments, and the citizens just watch, just get informed by the government. On the other hand, you have the government who sits aside who just watches and sees the citizens create their own solutions, their own ideas. We, or given the concern raised by the neighborhood committee over a long period, we assumed that the traffic problems were well known to us and that there was a broad support for change in the neighborhood. So we chose the participation process of consultation, citizen participation through consultation. We had 5 steps doing that. The first one is preparation. We had some internal working sessions internally, so inside of the city, with the teams of mobility, communication, and participation. There we knew what the problems were in the neighborhood, and we designed 3 mobility solutions, the slides I presented earlier. But we did not do that on our own. There was also a representative of the neighborhood committee who joined us, who adjusted, who gave their comments, and we adjusted the plans according to their remarks. Lessons learned about that: consulting and co-creation definitely leads to a strong buy-in and tailor-made solutions. Then the second step was the actual information session. So we built the 3 solutions, and then we wanted to address them to the audience, to the neighborhood. And we did that by participating in their annual neighborhood festival. They had it every year in the beginning, in spring, and we organized a public walk throughout the neighborhood. We had 3 major locations where we installed large panels with a lot of information about the traffic adjustments we would like to make. And our goal was mainly to inform the neighborhood what were our plans, and to see, are you in favor of that? Are you opposed to that? What are your pros and cons? Now, what was the result? The unexpected result is that we got a tsunami of resistance, a lot of emotions, a lot of resistance by the neighborhood. How come? Well, first of all, there were some invisible citizens, people, not invisible, but we did not know about, we did not hear until now. They were really opposed to it. They were opponents, and they had influenced residents beforehand through pamphlets. And when talking to those people, we noticed that they were not afraid of change, but they were afraid of uncertainty. All those changes, what will it bring to me? And change is not good. We feel we feel a lot of uncertainty. And we as a city, we underestimated that. We did not know them, so we had to talk after that information session. A lot of time, there were long talks with them to reassure everyone, but everything ended up quite all right, but we didn't expect that. Also, what did this learn? Well, that if you have an agreement of the neighborhood committee, that does not mean that you have an agreement of the whole neighborhood. Mobility is something specific, something personal, something emotional. So that was very clear to us. Also, we came with our proposition to the neighborhood, and we heard afterwards from some citizens that the site visit came across as too intrusive. So better for a first information session was to invite the neighborhood at the city hall. Then fourth, yes, such a face-to-face session and a walk and a public hearing is needed, but be aware as a local government that that is a platform, especially for the loudest opponents. We often see people who are in favor of adjustments do not show up or do not raise their voice, and be assured opponents, they do. And fifth, lessons learned is, we as a local government, we should have communicated our level of participation clearly and well in advance, so to manage the expectations. Third is about luckily a more pleasant step in the process was the data collection through the traffic sensors I mentioned before. We dropped a letter in every mailbox in the neighborhood for residents to volunteer. 9 were selected on specific locations to install the traffic sensor and to measure traffic during a period of 6 months, so 3 months before the traffic measures and 3 months until 3 months after. And all the residents needed to do was just installing the sensor, connected to the power supply at a, like you see here, a limited costs, only cost for the power, and share their concerns, their solutions, their ideas through the Telram platform. What we learned here, and was very pleasant, is that that was a group of highly motivated citizens. They were very enthusiastic, so we were very happy to use those user-friendly data sensors at a very low cost, but also to get the enthusiasm, the engagement of a lot of citizens to be part of the solution. A fourth is, yes, we went back to the audience, back to the neighborhood for an evaluation after 6 months. This is a one-way information session at first to present the results, the data. But afterwards, we took some time, like I think it was more than 3 hours, to engage with the audience, really one-to-one. What are your specific ideas, your problems? Do you still have resistance? What can we do about it? So that was a really good approach. And finally, I think 1 month ago, we launched the final survey, after which it was very clear that there was a clear divide between the residents, meaning like 60% of the residents were in favor of the traffic adjustments, where the traffic was cut, the speed was reduced. But the one street where all the cars had to exit the neighborhood, of course, there were 80 cars per day more. And they were still, during that final survey, against the measurements. They would like to see other solutions. So that's, as a lesson learned, makes it clear that you have the data on the one hand, the objective data that say, okay, mission accomplished, traffic is being reduced. But the other hand, not to be neglected, you have the perception, the emotion of any personal situation. Okay, that was my first case. The last 2 slides I have concern our current and new local mobility plan. Also here, we choose the participation approach of consultation. Our current local mobility plan dates from 2015. And yes, there was a co-creation, but not with our social stakeholders. It was an internal co-creation process, meaning we had workshops with urban planners, the youth department, economy, the sustainability team, the police department, etc. And yes, we had also external co-creation, but via a project steering committee with political authorities like the province and the region of Flanders. Once the plan was defined, was finished and approved, then afterwards we went to the social stakeholders. We extensively informed them, informed 34 parties individually, so it was a really time-consuming period. Some of them are listed here. We took our time. I think it was more than 3 months after the plan was finished that we went on a safari to see all those parties. Yes, if their feedback was relevant, was in line with the goal, the main goal and the main objective of our plan, we refined, we adjusted the plan. But it was also very clear from the beginning, and that is a lesson learned for the first case, now it was very clear for the public for the inhabitants of St. Niklaas that the city of St. Niklaas retained the right to make the final decision. In our new SUMP, the broad vision and objectives of the previous SUMP remain unchanged, so we will have the same participation approach. So internal co-creation, and then afterwards we go to the public for small adjustments or for small adjustments. The one thing we will do differently is the communication strategy after drafting the new plan. I hope we will have a more efficient approach. So not a long list of 3 months and 34 parties we have to consult and inform, but more efficient approach and a combination of online and offline information sessions. That is yet to be determined in collaboration with our external agency to see how many times do we go on a road trip, and what's the format of our participation. I think this is my last slide. Yes. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Wim. Really nice presentation from Belgium. I will just remind attendees that you can pose a question in chat or just raise a hand and we can read it or give you the floor to ask a question. So maybe I can kickstart with one question I have. I really like your example of involving citizen in a data collection with a sensor usage. Just wanted to say and ask you for the second SUMP. This is now announced. Do you have anything in plan to involve also the private sector, meaning giving them the ownership or asking either municipal companies or partners also to be involved in any kind of a data collection, so for them to feel like they also have the ownership of the whole process of SUMP development?
Well, I think we have to we will distinguish two things. The first thing is building the plan. So setting the vision, the goals, the KPIs, the data we lack or the data we have to build that plan. I think we'll do that by ourselves, and meaning internally inside of the city. So not only the mobility department, but also, like I mentioned here on top of the slide, together with the urban planners in line with the other plans, so with the UE department, etc. That's one thing. The other thing is in that plan, we define not only the high-level vision, but also action plans. So regarding cyclists, we want to give them their space, and we define like 15 for the next 10 years, 15 projects to be executed. And then the private sector comes into action, meaning if we want, for example, if we have defined in our plan 2 or 3 neighborhoods that we want to readjust regarding to the traffic situation over there, we are going to engage citizens and private partners as we did in the first example I gave. So not building the plan, but when executing the plan, we will involve private partners. Hope that's an answer to a question, Marco.
Yes. Well, if there are no other questions, I mean, we can also come back to your presentation, see if there are going to be any
Ben
other.
has a question, I see.
I have a question. Yeah. So obviously on the topic of data, I was wondering what was the experience of engaging with the opponents, having data as well? So was it useful? Was there a disparity between the grievances of those against and what was actually in the numbers, or what was that experience like?
Well, you often have we often have a platform where we present only the data, and then you say, "Good job, well done. Problems are all solved." But what I wanted to show is that there is another perspective, another point of view about the same story. The opponents well, the lessons learned was to get as much information. You have the data to give you information, but to get as much information about the people, the businesses that are there. Now it was a small neighborhood with no businesses, but there are sometimes there are businesses, there are other interests, partners who have other interests like a school or something. To do your homework well in advance, to connect with them. Of course, you cannot ring every doorbell to hear the point of view of every inhabitant, but to not being satisfied by hearing one voice, one representative of the neighborhood committee is not enough. So to be more prepared. What we do once we got a tsunami of resistance, we separated the teams, the groups. Because they had a big impact of the entire group. We took them apart. While we were walking through the neighborhood, okay, we did that with a lot of citizens, but we took the 3 or 4 guys who were really opposed to that apart, and we engaged one-to-one from the start, so that the opinion of the rest of the group was not impacted too much by the 3, 4, 5 opponents that were present. They did a job beforehand by distributing the pamphlets, and they did their job again by raising their voices during the walk in the neighborhood, but we separated them and talked, and so we're able to reduce resistance even during the first information session.
It's good to have numbers when facing opposition.
Good to have numbers, but it's not the entire story.
No, of course. Okay. I don't see any other questions, Marco. So I think maybe we should wrap this one up here. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, Wim.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Wim. And so the next presentation is going to be from the external experts, so not from REFOCUS project, but I have to highlight that this is one of the most active policy members with the really best practice in the topic that our project is dealing with. And just recently, 2 years ago, they developed the second SUMP with a lot of data collection. I know Bendegus with a lot of indicators, and I think that it's really great that we have you today to showcase how the process went. So feel free to share the screen and start the presentation.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm going to share my presentation now. Yes. Please give me an update if you can see it. The whole. I hope it's working.
Just Bendegus, just click on the presentation mode.
Yeah.
I'm in presentation mode. But you know what? I'm in presentation mode in my laptop. Now, is it in presentation mode?
No, but just click on you will see the.
I did.
Ah.
I did.
Well,
but
this is fine enough. Yeah, this is fine enough. You can go like this. Yes.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Bendegus Kovács. I'm a head of public engagement and the Center for Budapest Transport. We are and now I'm going to talk about how we developed the review process of the Budapest Mobility Plan. and how that we deal really in this process. First of all, who are we? BKK is the Transport Organizing Authority of Budapest. We are 100% owned municipal company, and we are operating with our service providers, BKV, who are also municipality-owned transport company, and a private company, Arriva, and also our partners who are state-owned companies who are responsible for transport between cities and in the agglomeration of Budapest. A bit of a data about Budapest.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry to interrupt. I think we've lost the presentation when you switched. So maybe it was the full screen.
Okay, then I don't use I'm not going to use it.
Maybe just use it in the regular browser window.
You can see it, right?
This is better. Yeah. Stick with this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are working with the Budapest functional urban area because Budapest mobility issues are mainly coming from outside our city borders. Our functional urban area covers 193 municipalities, plus there are 23 district municipalities inside Budapest, so quite a few stakeholders. That means that we have inside Budapest, we have 1.7 million inhabitants, and in the whole FUA area, there are 3.2 million. And it's just an interesting thing that the population of the whole FUA zone is unchanged for more than 20 years. Yes, and the evolution of Budapest SUMP. First, we had the Budapest Transport System Development Plan. It was developed in 2009. It was not a SUMP. It didn't use the SUMP methodology. It was managed by the municipality, but made by an external designer company. Not so many stakeholders were involved. It was like really an in-house study about what we should do with Budapest mobility. The first real SUMP-based review was in 2015. It was called the Balázs-Mór Plan. Mór Balázs was a really important transportation planning figure in the 19th century. He helped the creation of the first tram lines in Budapest, and also the millennial subway that was the first in the continent. And that's why the first mobility plan of Budapest was named after him. It contained objectives and measures. It was already managed by BKK, which was founded in 2010, but it was still made by an external consortium, and there were not so much participation included. And it was reviewed again in 2019. It was the first time that we could consider this was a full SUMP. It had the development and investment program, project sheets, institutional analysis, monitoring, and an indicator system. And it was also managed by BKK, but that was still made by an external consortium. But it was still a higher level of involvement for all the stakeholders. But the real deal happened in the latest SUMP review process that was started in 2022 after another big agglomeration strategy for Budapest in the team of railways, meaning that the government wanted to make a huge development in the Budapest agglomeration suburban railway network, or it seemed at that time that they wanted to. So that's why we decided to make a review process. And this review process has already its own public engagement plan, and it was completely managed and made by BKK. So that was the point when we could include all the stakeholders we wanted. Shortly, our main targets of all the Budapest mobility plans is facing for 2030. We wanted to reach 50% public transportation share, 20% walking share, 10% cycling share, and 20% passenger car transport, meaning that out of 10 journeys made inside Budapest, we want 8 to be made by one of the sustainable transportation modes. Results from for the modal split from 2024. That meaning that we are like a bit stagnating in the terms of car ridership. Cycling and walking are getting more and more space in the modal split, but it's happening during the decrease of public transportation. We are now looking into the data what could cause this decrease in public transportation ridership. But today's topic is about the public engagement process. As I mentioned, this was the first SUMP that was entirely made by BKK. So we had the chance to create an engagement plan that had 3 levels. One of the key stakeholder group were our citizens in Budapest. There was another one, our professional mobility NGOs and mobility experts. And there was a third one with the state institutions, authorities, and also the city council, or we could call the General Assembly, that adopted at the end of the process officially the reviewed Budapest mobility plan. So these were the three level of engagement. And as we were working with so many stakeholders, we created a really quick schedule and a time plan how to include these stakeholder groups with the channels that best suited to their needs. And first, I would like to start with the citizens consultation. As we mentioned earlier, the ladder of public engagement, we are working on the consultation level for NGOs, experts, and the citizens. And I would say that on the higher level with authorities and of course the city council, that at the time included all the district mayors of Budapest in 2023. That level was more closer to the co-creation ladder of participation. But back to the citizens. Our plan was to involve them heavily in the beginning of the process and at the end of the process. We use online surveys to do that. A main goal was to have a better understanding about the issues citizens feel important. As you've heard, the previously have a huge public engagement process or participation from the citizens. So we wanted to make a questionnaire asking them, okay, do you actually agree about what we are planning here in BKK? Do you agree with this 8:10 ratio of sustainable transportation modes? So that's why we made the survey at the beginning of the process. And when we made all the internal and external consultation with NGOs, experts, and authorities, we published the almost ready document 2 times on our website, and we made for that to get some kind of validation about the proposed plan and give opportunity to pivot at a late stage for also the citizens. What is important in this process that our evaluation process of the citizens' comments was really transparent. This is our website, BKK, that is unfortunately in Hungarian, but you can look for the BMT participatory database, where you can see what what we did with each of the comments that we got for the Budapest mobility plan. So all the citizens can see what happens with their comments in the process. If we could incorporate it into the SUMP, or we decided that this is not a topic for the SUMP, but this is a topic for another thematic strategy or another specific project. Or there was also a category where we said that this comment is not in line with the strategic vision of the city, so we cannot incorporate it into the SUMP. That were the three categories. And also on the right side, you can see that it's from the beginning survey. That's 87% of the filler of that survey agreed with the 8-to-10 ratio of sustainable transportation modes in Budapest. So we said that, okay, we are on the right track. And as I mentioned, in communication, when we are talking about these kind of difficult and complex issues like a sustainable urban mobility,
I think we might be having a connection problem just now. I'm not sure if everyone else is experiencing that as well.
And with the strategy, and people hate strategy, have stories, they want to have emotion, as simple, ordinary, local stories. You can see.
Yep, can hear you. Maybe the camera off is probably for the best. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry
No,
for the back.
Start with communication. Yeah, communication.
Yes, communication is key. We made a social media campaign and also a press campaign involving local citizens who share their stories, why they feel that commenting the Budapest urban mobility plan is important, what their goals, what their needs, what they agree with, what they are not agree with, and we wanted to enhance participation in this way. So this was for the citizens level. We had another level when we wanted to involve experts and NGOs. Mobility NGOs play a huge role in the Budapest mobility talks. They have long-lasting traditions. They are always commenting everything what the city or BKK does. So we wanted to have their own forum when they could share with us their suggestions and comments. So we created the mobility forum for NGOs. It's called in Hungarian. It has its own ruling. And we welcomed all NGOs who are dealing with Budapest and dealing with mobility, and the members list some of the more important members are the Hungarian Cycling Club, the Hungarian Motorist Club, Hungarian Transport Association, Association for Urban and Suburban Transport, but also we included the Hungarian Federation of Blind and Partially Sighted, associations who are representing people with physical or other kind of disabilities, because we wanted to have a universal approach about commenting the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. And we had 8 meetings with this forum, and we could incorporate quite a few of their suggestions, and also but it also happened that we had to say, for example, to the Hungarian Motorist Club, who demanded that we build more parking lots in downtown. We had to say that sorry, we cannot incorporate this because this is not in line with our strategic goals. The other part of the experts engagement was the Balázs Mór Club. That was a forum for not for NGOs but for independent mobility experts, universities. This was a regular forum had for in every 2 months, where we presented the progress of the SUMP creation, SUMP review process, and experts could comment, suggest new targets, methodology, and projects to be included in the plan. And this whole forum was so successful successful that last year it continued, even though the SUMP review has already been adopted. The forum has continued, and it got its own conference, and it's called the Balázs Mór Conference. And the last and the third level of stakeholders are the key institutions, governmental bodies. During this time, even though the Budapest part of the whole process was quite stable, BKK was responsible for the SUMP process. On the other hand, the main strategic planning partner would have been the state itself. But the governmental body responsible for the Budapest mobility plan is changing. In every 1 or 2 years, which creates quite an uncertain situation who to negotiate with, especially that many of our proposed projects are state funded or EU funded, and it created quite a challenge. Also, getting data about proposed governmental project became really difficult, because we cannot really determine whether one project is actually going to be realized or this is just some kind of governmental communication. So this was quite a challenge during the process. Institutionally, we tried to tackle it with another committee. It's called the Balázs Mór Committee, that was gathered by the CEO of BKK. It included the metropolitan, regional, and state stakeholders. And their job was to professionally monitor the strategic planning process and to comment and suggest new thing to the SUMP. And they had voting rights. They had to adopt every round of the review process, and they made decisions at certain points. So the process couldn't go on after if the Balázs Mór Committee didn't accept the latest version of the proposed SUMP. I hope I didn't exceed too much the time. That would be my presentation, and I'm ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. It was a really great example from Budapest. I see in chat and also Q&A that we have 2 questions. So first one is from Vasilis on, I will just read it. How easy was to respect or keep the strict engagement timeline, and when each stakeholder group had or has different processes and timelines that they can engage with, for example, approvals?
To be honest, when we were able to share the timeline with the stakeholders itself, it was much easier before that, when we could discuss it with them. But I have to be honest, sometimes we have to say that, okay, we are really sorry, but we cannot wait anymore for your comments, because the process has to go on, because there are so many stakeholders. But in these times, we said also that please send us the comments whenever you feel ready, and we are going to try to incorporate them into other thematic strategies, because parallel to the Budapest mobility plan, we were preparing many thematic strategies, like the road safety strategy, and also the active and micromobility strategy. So we could still, and these strategies has a different timeline, so we could use their comments there. Yes.
Okay. I don't know, Vasilis, if you are satisfied with the answer, I'll just ask the second question until then. So the second question, as I read it, is, so you said you presented 80% of all trips made by sustainable modes is the aim, which is, well, that's a huge aim. So how do you, or how will you convince or nudge citizens, but also shopping people and working people, not to use the car and use alternatives Is there an infrastructure and alternative or communication or awareness campaign to help you in this?
We say that basically the whole aim of the SUMP and all the interventions we are doing in the city are aiming that. Right now, we are planning 3 more tramline extensions. We are renewing our pool of vehicles. We are concentrating on accessibility. That was a huge tariff reform in the last year when people could use the same pass for traveling inside Budapest and outside Budapest. That means that public transport is has never been cheaper to use in Hungary, and we are hoping that these kind of pool interventions may be enough to do that, because and we also know that a really effective way would be to introduce some legislation for or a low emission zone, but right now we don't see the political will to do that, and so we are trying to do the other thing just to attract citizens to public transport, and also to develop more and more our biking infrastructure, because we have an understanding that sometimes changing from cars to bike is easier than changing from car to public transport, because cars and bikes can give you the freedom you need this situation.
Okay. I really like the interactivity. So yeah, feel free to ask. I will read the last question because we have to go and then maybe ask after. So the next question is from our partner from Ukraine. Have you ever had situation during a forum or committee meeting where opinions were split 50-50? What do you do in such cases?
Okay, so this could have happened at the Balázs committee at the authorities forum, but to be honest, it didn't happen because all the participants said that the Budapest urban mobility plan, and this is a good thing, the target setting happened like 10 years ago. And the targets hasn't changed. High-level strategic documents, so participants could get a compromise easily. So at the end, we didn't have a vote when most of the voting were close to unanimous, luckily. But it's a good question. What would we do if it happened? I would say that we would go back to negotiating with the partners for a long time, and hoping that we can get a compromise somehow.
Okay. Thank you very much again. And yeah, now I will announce myself. So please, Ben, if you see the chat or Q&A, tell me, because I will not see the screen. So unfortunately, my colleague from Ljubljana today is sick, so I will have presentation alone, which gives me an opportunity to maybe share more examples from a couple of police members, and not only Ljubljana, but also, I mean, to share my personal experiences since I was in a part of the team of development of 10 SUMPs so far, and maybe I just want to share my experience in what I would call making a second generation of SUMPs and putting it into the context of participatory approach, institutional setup and innovation, and also governance when developing the SUMP. So just please, Ben, confirm if you see my slides.
I see them. Full screen.
Thank you very much. So as I said, I mean, decision-making in sustainable mobility planning requires cooperation across all governance levels and involvement of citizen stakeholders in that process. So I'm just reminding you of a topic guide and steps in the SUMP development in which we can include citizens. So you see that throughout the whole process, we actually have the opportunity to give sense of the ownership to citizens and sense of the acceptance through the whole process of development. And also, I mean, in the 11th and 12th step, you see also in the monitoring phase, so in the implementation, and also regarding the data, which is very important in this project. Throughout all of these steps, we also have an opportunity to go back to the data and KPIs and use them in the governance model innovation and also participatory approach towards the citizens. So I would say the first to start with this participatory approach and governance. What I see in some of the examples in our members when they're developing the SUMP, or I mean, for that sense, any other strategies that like green plan or climate plan, is often there is not so meaningful participation of stakeholders, but just for the sake of it. And I would say that the main challenge is really inclusion of all local and regional institutions, as I said, for them to have the sense of the ownership of the whole process, and not only for them to feel like city administration developed the SUMP and then just gave the opportunity to speak or give any feedback to all stakeholders involved only in the last step. So in that, I think the coordination with all policy sectors is helpful and welcome. Because as you know, the transport sector is not the only one who should be involved, and more we see, especially with the climate mission, that, for example, climate plans or CCAPs or energy plans should also be involved, which means that all of those departments should be involved in a process from the early on, and also all governance levels. So I will show you also one of the examples from Slovenia, in which it was very important for the paradigm shift and transport behavior shift to involve not only stakeholders on the local level, but also the regional and national level input to create all of this paradigm shift. I mean, in motor shift space, also reallocation cost shifts toward the active modes or public transport, and also accompanying with a risk shift and through the monitoring and data and KPIs. I would say also one of the main challenges also when we involve political leaders to bring the message to the citizens is to try to avoid populism and polarization, which we often see in recent years throughout the, I mean, globally, how this can become a driver for some populist ideas, and then the backlash and feedback which we, for example, after the COVID pandemic saw, for the example, towards the initiative of 15-minute cities. So in that process, I think the taken opportunity which shouldn't be missed is reconciling what the citizens want, but also what the society needs. So not only giving citizens what they want, so which is always one more car lane, but also what society needs. And by that, winning the sustainable mobility from the early on. I will give you the 5 examples from our members, which I think are very important. Here in this slide, you can see one of the main artery roads in the city center in Ljubljana, which is called Slovenska Street. So on the left side, you can see how this main artery road looked like, where the 3 lanes, where the public transport sharing the lane with the private vehicles and taxis, and with very narrow pedestrian places. So before this was introduced, there was a survey among the citizens in which 1% of the citizens of Ljubljana, which is 280,000 inhabitants, they were participating in, and 85%, so 85% of the citizens were against the closure of this street. So back to my previous slide, I just want to say not giving to the citizens what they want, but also what society needs. So for that purpose, the garage in the suburbs, the big one was made for the park and ride. And also the street was completely closed for the private vehicles, which you can see on the road, on the right photo. And now it's a shared space with the opportunity for public transport and taxi only to access this. So as I said, 85% of people were against it. And now, 2 years after, the same survey was made. And actually now 90%, 90, of the surveyed citizens were pro, because they saw what the change brought to the city center. And fun fact for all of you also, what that make Ljubljana of. So Ljubljana is a European capital with the biggest ratio of pedestrian zone in the city center in comparison to the whole area. So it brought the life to the city center. Now it has the biggest pedestrian zone, and also it affected the usage of the space. As you see, the people are not only crossing the street or going through the street like you see on the left, but also remaining in the street, and it affected the shopping as well in a positive way. For that, and why I said the inclusion of the national and regional level is also important. Ljubljana is together with Flanders, one of the best examples, I would say, in this not only horizontal but also vertical cooperation, in which they introduced the SUMP law, the monitoring scheme, which was the basis for them funding the SUMP measures for the cities from the national fund. And also they introduced their own guidelines and methodology for SUMP development. And every 2 to 3 years, they have a quality control in monitoring and evaluation of specific KPIs and indicators, which then serves for the evaluation of SUMP. They also have a national platform of activities with a technical support. So all of these was actually very purposeful for Ljubljana and other cities in development and implementation of their SUMP. Another example I want to give, not only as a great, but also with some let's say not bad example, but I think it's always really important not only to talk about the steps which were best practices, but also not so, because in knowledge share, this is very important for others not to compare. It's, as you know, good move, like SUMP is called in Brussels, was given an award on a European level with a good participatory process. For the citizens, with a lot of plans for the circulation roads in neighborhoods. It was followed by a participation in each of the neighborhoods in the city and in the greater urban area, which is important in this case. But after election, it was not followed by the sense of the ownership by all of the political and decision makers. So now there is a lot of a backlash, not from the citizen level only, but also from the politicians who didn't feel like they were involved in the process of development of SUMP from the start. And now a lot of those circulation plans or UVARs, so access regulation restrictions, are postponed or even cancelled. So I would say this is a really good and a good example, but with some bad elements. And I put a link there for all of you in English to read about their story if you want to learn about it. In this this slide, I wanted to show you just the research that Polis did with for the Commission that served as a basis for 10T revision. And as you know, from 2027, all of the major cities, so more than 400 cities in Europe, will have to use the standardized data sets in development and monitoring the SUMP. And in this research, you can see in the upper right corner that the green lines were not up to 100%, which means that not only cities up until now don't have the capacity to use the data, but sometimes they don't know how to use it. They don't have the clear procedures in managing the database. And I think this experimental time until 2027 will help the cities across Europe with also funding mechanisms to really fully extend the opportunity to use the data in planning and monitoring SUMP for better and more effective planning. This is maybe seen as in Brussels, the most important. This is just one of the SUMP measures in which I think it shows the best how to use the data and how to use the participatory approaches, dynamic space management, because to announce, communicate, and plan flexible usage of those zones, it's very important from the early on to communicate this to citizens, to communicate this to shop owners, to communicate this to delivery companies, and also any other car sharing or delivery sharing options. Another example I have, I'm sorry, I'm a bit rushing because I see that we only have 5 or more minutes for my presentation, is from Aarhus, Denmark, in which in this green mobility plan, the citizen engagement was in the received a broad political support. And the reason is from the start in Aarhus, all of the political parties, even opposition, was called to support and give a feedback, even in the scenario building for SUMP. And they had 10 events per year organized from last year, and it will continue until 2030, until the plan is on, with a series of events and meetings, not only with the stakeholders, but with the citizens. And they are also using, not to repeat now what Wim said for St. Nicholas, but also using a plan to involve sensors, which you can see how it's seen from the management board, to use sensors and to use citizens to also to collect the data, to feel the ownership of the process from the early on. The next example is from the regional level, because I want to also show you how it's managed on the regional level. As you know, Germany has states, so Baden-Württemberg from the early on started actually to support its cities with the SUMP development, with the technical support, addressing the functional urban area level. And from the early and ongoing, they involved all of the local policymakers also to accept the plan and its measure. And the monitoring introduced in their sub-law was very important then to finance all of those SUMP measures. Why I say the climate mobility plan, because they introduced the sub-law also for the climate mobility plan in the context of climate missions. So the KPIs of their SUMPs are mostly focusing on decarbonization. And those two plans, so climate plan and mobility plan, are intertwined. The next very good, I think, example also come from Belgium. It's Antwerp, which introduced the innovative governance models in the development of SUMP, because I think it's very important. Sometimes when we say innovation in transport sector, most of us first think about innovation in technology, innovation in data, but what is a prerequisite for all of that to work towards the same goal is innovation in governance. And I think Antwerp, with a total of 100 working sessions that were organized in development of their SUMP, with more than 3,500 experts and policymakers involved, and 3,000 citizens that participated in sessions organized to give a feedback to the SUMP, really then resulted in what we called effective and innovative planning with, as I say, the ownership and the sense of ownership with all involved sector. And maybe just as a conclusion from all of these examples, I would say that it's very important from the early on that all involved stakeholders in the SUMP development should work as an orchestra to actually result in something that we call effective planning, and for SUMP not to be one more strategy or plan which just ends up in our drawer. And for that, I will just pick one person here. If you see in the first row in Chor, there is a man who's not singing but looking up. So if this man is not looking or singing, or if he is out of tune because he was not given the instructions how to work, then yeah, it's giving then a purpose of how our SUMP implementation could collapse, because sometimes some actor, very important stakeholder, or even a company or private sector which is not involved but affects the SUMP implementation, then gives the issues and the challenges in the planning and in the implementation phase. Thank you all for that, and just reminding all of the partners that one more month, a call for abstracts is open for one of the biggest events regarding mobility in Europe, happening in Utrecht this year in November. That's Polis Conference, and feel free for all of your SUMP abstracts to submit them, and hopefully we will organize a very good session on the topic that our project REFOCUS is dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. So we actually do have a question, and it was actually along the lines of what my question was going to be about, which was, I think, come out in the context of the comparison between Ljubljana and the Brussels Good Move. So the question is from Vasilis, and he says, we have seen different contexts of SUMP engagement, local to regional. What is a satisfactory time allowance to complete the engagement of stakeholders at each phase? And does that vary between the different levels, do you think? And my question was similarly, in the case of Ljubljana and Brussels Good Move, is political sort of stability and the time frame of that, is that a major concern?
Yeah. I think from political standpoint, I think it's very smart actually to plan in advance, and it's very important for some plan or action to come into action before the elections and not after it, because then possible results could completely alternate what we planned and then postpone all of the SUMP measures. And for satisfactory time, I see, for example, in Ljubljana, in which I worked with during the 14 months that SUMP was developed, there were exactly, I think, 14, so one per month feedback session from the with citizens and with stakeholders on the neighborhood levels. And after each presentation in those sessions, there were 2 weeks given for citizens to give written feedback, complaints, ideas, edits. And then there was 2 weeks to adjust the plan. And then we jumped to another session. So I hope this is satisfactory response, but I can give more in writing. I see also one question from Wim, and then I will close and give a floor really to Josep, because I'm talking too much. So SUMP in Flanders, as Wim said, are no longer obliged for all of the cities, because Flanders introduced, together with Poland, together with, to my knowledge, Greece, also the obligation for regions to have an SUMP, and Flanders has at the moment, I think, 15 of those. But obligation for urban nodes in Flanders does not come from Flanders level, but from European level. So all of the cities in Belgium, including Flanders, that are defined as urban nodes, will have to develop SUMP for FUA level, so greater urban area, until 2027, which doesn't affect smaller or mid-sized cities, as said Niklas, But still, I think this is very, very good point by Wim, because we see in some countries like those three I named that we have the activities on regional level, and I think that yeah, involving them as a middleman and not only the national level is really helpful, and I hope Flanders will help you in the process of SUMP implementation as well, not only with the technical support, but with the money. No? Okay. Yeah, so then without further ado, we have a really good presentation, the next one from CERT from Greece. Josep, Maria, feel free to step in and share the slides.
Okay, thank you, Marco. Can you hear me well? And then it's me sharing the slide. So 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have it in front of me. Let me share the screen. Okay. You should see the slides, right?
Yes, we see them. Perfect.
Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you for inviting us to present. I will brief you, tell you about the Living Lab we are hosting in Thessaloniki. I am a colleague of Maria at CERT, and we are having this Living Lab since 2012, so it has been a long trip journey. So, sorry, very briefly, the 4 pillars of our Living Lab are about from data to knowledge. This is how we started. We started being data intensive in the sense that we were gathering data from all the ecosystem. But then we started feeding the Living Lab with more partners, with more projects, with more solutions, and we created the other pillars. We had dedicated resources in the Living Lab that could help the local ecosystem. We had additional resources to facilitate innovation. And this is, I will show you in the next slides how we create value and how we engage the stakeholders to be part of the ecosystem. So all this value is coming from all these pillars. And finally, and maybe the most important one is about ending up in social innovation, ending up in something for the citizens and something coming from the citizens. So we have these pillars. It's about data, it's about society, it's about resources, putting value, giving value to the ecosystem. After these 12, 13 years, we have evolved. We started as kind of testbed for mobility. We added the dimension of the citizens. Now we are evolving where we can test any kind of solution in the city, having all the stakeholders engaged. And this is how we are having new projects. What is important for us in the Living Lab is that the Living Lab is not a project in itself. The Living Lab is an infrastructure that is supporting projects. This means that we are leading the Living Lab, we are hosting the Living Lab. We are not the Living Lab ourselves, of course, but we are the ones having the vision of the Living Lab. We are the ones trying to bring the funds for the Living Lab mostly. And then every project is bringing us a new partner, a new data set, a new service. And we're trying to put all these pieces together to create the vision and the view of the Living Lab. In this sense, we are having the quadruple helix. We have the research and academia, we have the public administrations, the city and the region. We have the private sector, which in mobility is about the operators, but is also about the technology providers. And we have the citizens through some associations. We talk to the bike association, pedestrian association, but also directly citizens participating into our projects, into co-creation, but testing and co-assessing the solutions. And this is a kind of high-level architecture in which, as I told you, our Living Lab is strong on the data side. So we have our data sources, which they can be static data or dynamic data in real time. The data is coming from all the ecosystem. We are working also on an app, so we can have data from the citizens themselves. And then the data is coming to us. We are managing the data. We are supporting test beds. So even if we're a living lab within projects, we are creating dedicated thematic test beds to test any kind of solutions, logistics, cooperative services, autonomous driving, and anything we can do. And then we have our tools and algorithms that can enable value solutions, and we are delivering it. On the upper side, we're delivering to the private and the public sector, in the sense that we are creating services, we're creating value for the stakeholders of the ecosystem. But also our end users are the citizens. So even through these stakeholders, or even directly through our services, we end up into giving a better mobility experience to the end users through mobile or through desktop solutions. This is an important slide because there is always the question, what is the impact of a living? What are you achieving? Yes, you say that you can accelerate innovation. Yes, but how do we measure that you accelerate innovation? So we try to create 4 domains of impact, in the sense that how many data sources we have. We start with sensing the city. So we have data sources, open data sets, we have detectors, equipment, we have the buses connected, the taxis. So we can sense the city really in real time. How we can engage with the local ecosystem. And here you see 2 numbers, because one of the numbers is the Living Lab ecosystem, which is around 30 members. But we created a cluster, and this cluster is one of the pillars that I show you above. The dedicated resources, it was about competence center and a cluster. The cluster facilitates the addition of 35 companies to the Living Lab. These companies were more reluctant to be part of the Living Lab, but through the cluster project, we created the feeling and the trust in them to give us our data, and we will give you value on the top of this data, even because we can combine it with other data sets, or even because we can transfer know-how from our projects to you. So now we are quite happy that we have a very good ecosystem of companies, stakeholders being part of the ecosystem. Then at the end of the day is about the services that we are creating, but the reach of these services. We are used to research projects having, I would say, a small impact. Most of the services, most of the solutions are a small scale, or they never continue after the end of the project. So here we are trying to keep everything alive. So everything we do in the Living Lab, it stays alive. We are committed to keep it working, updated. And we're trying to measure what is the impact, how many people is using what we do. And we had various the last 2 years, various applications where we are having thousands of daily users. This is good and it's bad. I will tell you why. It's good because you are getting really there. No, you have thousands of people using your services. It is, I wouldn't say that is bad, but it's dangerous because you are getting exposed. We were not used to have thousands of people using our services on a daily basis. This means that they will criticize you. They will not like them. So it was a good experience to us that when we were successful in the first service, we were exposed and we were receiving criticism about the colors, about who is getting the money from the ads. So you cannot imagine, you can imagine how the people can think about it. But it's good because we are having a real impact on our citizens, on the mobility of the city in Thessaloniki. Then something that this is what we do as a demo usually. We are having a kind of decision theater on our facilities, where we are showing, we are visualizing all the data sources, all the services. So we can invite here politicians, decision makers, private company, personnel, even citizens. So we can show to them, what do we do? This is the data we collect. These are the services we create. You can access to these services. This is the value. So it's a kind of showroom that we are doing a lot. We have maybe twice a month we have visitors, and it's usually that we have the mayor of the city, we have the prime minister, we have ministers coming to us, private companies. And lately, we are having the interest of many companies. They are coming to us and they say, we like this solution. We want to commercialize it. So it's important that we are able to communicate and to visualize what we do. So it's just a room with 15 screens, but it has a strong impact into visualizing. We do this, we can do this. These are the services, this is the data. And starting with data, we understood that in any kind of co-creation or participatory process, if you have data, you can visualize it. It's very important because you can support anything you do with facts, with numbers, with figures, or even you can tell to them, if we do this, if we give more bicycles or more bike lanes, this is the impact. And you can show the impact for the citizens, for the bike operator, and then you have numbers in the table. You can tell to them, if I double the number of bicycles in the city, I will reduce the access time in 1 minute, but the operator will pay 10,000 euros more. So with these values, it's very good to stimulate and to facilitate all these co-creation exercises and discussions. So how we sense the city? We follow the taxis in real time. We know where every taxi is at every moment. We have a Bluetooth network in which we can track devices within the city. We also connected to the micromobility operators and we can follow anyone using a scooter in the city. We have environmental sensors. We have data from telecom operators about where people is. We have air quality indicators. We use this data to create these 15 minutes areas in the city. And about the value, we create value for the local police, telling to them where congestion is strange and they should do something. We create value for decision makers, where they should locate the bike stations, the micromobility stations, and what would happen if they have more, less bikes, more, less scooters. We can help the city and policymakers into creating policy for micromobility scooters, where they should be banned, the access, the parking, the speed should be limited. We can also facilitate the operators into asking to the system, I will reduce the cost of my bicycle. I will give more bicycles. What will be the impact? What will be my new market share? What will be my revenues? Also for the citizens, we can facilitate the citizens into using multimodal services, working to take the bus, to take any scooter. So we're trying to get also for the citizens real services that they can use in a daily life. They can request for a DRT service. We are providing our service taxis in the city. We are giving information about congestion in Thessaloniki, which this was the app that gave us we exploit in the number of users because Thessaloniki is facing an issue with the ring road, and we are trying to facilitate the daily life of the citizens. And this was the app that we get these tens of thousands of people participating using it. The same app can help policymakers. What was the impact of my measure? I know that I will have congestion. I will put more police. I will change traffic lights. They can see the impact of everything. The city, we are helping the city into having a measure on the CO2 emissions. This is related to the 100 cities. Thessaloniki is going to reduce the emissions by 2030. They should measure somehow. We created a platform where they can see buildings, they can see anything moving in the city, how much CO2 is creating. They can do scenarios. I have 1 million. I should invest in what I should invest. This is the cluster with the companies. We were giving to them this main layer. Give us the data. We will open the data to you. You can have added value services. They will create in different services. Open data. We are having this open data portal for 10, 15 years now, and it's very good because it's being used by universities, by students, but also by the companies. Citizens, pedestrian routing. We are giving innovative pedestrian routing services with different criteria. And the last one is about our app. We want to put all these things into an app. So the front end of the app are the services, traffic, travel time, everything. And the back end of the app is this collection of data from the users. That is what we really need to understand how people is moving, why people is moving in the city. So that was my presentation, and I will be happy to respond to any question.
Thank you very much, Jose. really nice presentation. And it was great to actually see it when we were in Thessaloniki. I see that we have one question for you in chat. So could you tell us a little more about the mobile app for collecting data for citizens? How it works, what information it collects exactly? Is it free app and who developed it?
Yeah, this app is something we had on, we planned for it. We wanted to have to do it for 6-7 years, but we really needed a winner in the sense that we had services for cooperative traffic lights. We had services for level crossings, but we weren't feeling that the people will want the app for these services. So we wait for one of the services that would really be needed by the citizens, and this is the one about congestion. We are facing this ring road capacity cut in the city. So it was the ministry itself that asked us, I need you to create a platform, I need you to create an app. So we saw the opportunity of launching the app in the sense that we start with the congestion information, but if the users are happy with the app, we can evolve it and give more services to them. So it was us developing the app. It was the ministry helping us a lot into giving visibility to the app through press conference, press release, and also on the TV. We saw tens of thousands of downloads the next day. So this was very, very good for us. And as I said, it was also dangerous because we were really exposed for the first time. It's a free app, and any citizen can download it and use it. And we expect this app, if it's accepted and used broadly by the citizens, that it will become our app to communicate to them. So we will start giving more services and start getting the data. As from now, we are getting no data on this app because we were afraid that if we start collecting data, they would not use the app. So first we gave the app without data collection, without cost, and we plan not to put a cost, but at some moment to start collecting data from this app. But this is not something that will happen on the short term.
Well, I'm muted. Thank you very much. And we have one last question for you, Josep, is from Belgium. Can we as a REFOCUS partner also have access to the app?
Yeah, the app is open. I can send you it's both on the iOS on the marketplace. So I can send it to Maria, and Maria can facilitate you access to the app. It's an app in which you will see a map of Thessaloniki and some colors in the roads. I don't know how useful it will be, but yes, you can take a look at it. Yeah.
I think the easiest would actually be if you just put it as a link in presentation, because after the event, we are going to not only share presentation with all of participants, but also disseminate and publish it on Interreg website. So
Okay,
even better.
okay.
Yeah.
I will add it to the presentation and send it to you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Really nice presentation, and
You're welcome.
From
Thank you for inviting us. Of course.
Thank you. And now I will announce just the last presentation in a day. It's our partner from Poland. So this Victor Żukowski, I hope I pronounced it good. I leave the floor open to you.
It's not easy to translate in English my name, so Victor will be enough in that case. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen and my presentation. I will start in a minute. Okay, now it's okay. Looks good.
Yes,
That's great.
Okay, so I would like to talk about the 3D model of the city and the database connected with it. And the presentation was prepared with the cooperation with GeoPost and Poznań. So there are two authors of them. So that's why we are cooperating in the project in the Poznań, and GeoPost is, let's say, one of the parts of the city of Poznań. So that's why we focus on the activities connected with the databases of the Poznań city. I think the same like previous presentation, the model, the database is very complicated. I think there could be plenty of different best practices or good practices that are taken from that solution, because the functionality of the process of the application is quite wide. Especially it started, I think, 9 years ago. It was the initiations of the project, and it was quite plain and easy and 2D. And then after 9 years, we got the quite huge functionality, still developed and still supplied with the additional data. And the process is lasting, so there should be different angles, different way of use it, and of course I cannot even present all the functionalities which was prepared by the developers. And for 4 years of experience, the developers decided to use some kind of the international standards. So that's the way to exchange the data, not to focus on the local standards, just to use the things which can be used from different angles, different sources. And on the other hand, the model is so interdisciplinary that you can even find the digging inside the model the maps from the Second World War. It is possible to find them. And the aim of the application of the solution is not only to publish the data, but just to publish the data in the way it will be easy to understand. And of course, it means that the data have to be proceeds have to be changed, have to be prepared to the formats which be easy to read by the public, but of course the offices of the Poznań city or of different cities too can use the data which are prepared in the professional mode for professional purposes. So quite easy. Just look on the map. We just have the one thing is the map. On the map, of course, there is a terrain model. There are buildings. So the bridges are as one of the most important buildings in the city, and of course the vegetation on it. So there is information about the plant of different things which can be located in the city, and of course we have the information about the size, location, and as you can see, part of the buildings are in the 3D model. And I'll just move it here for a second because I cannot see the second slide, so that's the reason it's not easy to operate. And of course, apart from the information about the data, about the view, about the picture of the real picture of the buildings, of the location of the trees, and other things, you can find in the database plenty of different information. And here you have information about the one of the buildings, so that there are plenty of data which can be used by different auditory. And in this case, we have the ground level, the height of the building, the number of the floors, and things like that, which can be accessible to that. Next functionality is to compare the real development on the ground with the zoning plans. We can compare it. We can compare the existing buildings. We can compare the planned buildings, the developments. We can even compare the area of the green on the building, because usually the zoning plans gives the indication how much green area we should leave on the ground. So if there is the zoning plan in the city, because not all the city is covered with it, you will just have the information what is the height of the building, what should the height of the building, if the buildings are in the plans, in the zoning plans, or there are some things which are out of it. And of course, the information to prepare the data is not the source of one office, because as I know from the source, the 4 different offices have to be involved in the preparation and presenting the data. So it is the way to cooperate between the offices of the city too. In Poznań, there is, I think, around 100,000 buildings which are on the plans, and 95,000 of it is in the LOD2 standards. So we have more than only the squares, more than only the standard features, and of course there are some only some buildings with the already free pattern or details, especially the historical ones, and you can find the information on the map. Of course, it is usually it is just to present for the audience, not the professional use, because usually the architects are not so interested in the 3D information. But of course, for us, for the people who are going outside, it is fine to find the real buildings on the real plan. And of course, there are some possible interaction between the user, between the application. Here you can see the buildings can be measured and in different angles. And next thing which can be done, we can have some kind of the shading simulations. So it is especially important when we are planning the green and we're planning the green zones. When you are planning the next buildings, especially when the buildings which are planned are very huge and very high. In this case, the shading simulation is quite important. And the next thing is that the so-called visibility area. So we can put someone who is watching on the map and just give the information what will be seen from that location. And of course, it can be done in case of the one direction looking around. You can see the both situation on the screen. What is, I think, quite important in case of environment is the solar potential of the roofs. So not even the roofs, but every slope of the roof in the city has given the potential of obtaining the solar energy. And you can find the information where is the best place to locate, the best roof to locate the photovoltaics. And of course, you can decide which part of the roof can be used for that activity. The new thing is the connection with maybe not so new, but the connection with the IoT devices. You can see the information about the weather on the screen. You can have the information from the pollution stations, so the different location in the city, and of course the data are accessible online, and you can see it. I think that the refreshment is every 1 minute, so it's quite fresh. The next thing is the green area. The database include 3 million objects. Usually there are trees or some bushes if they are huge, and part of them are located just exactly in the located place. But in case of the forest or wooden areas, of course, there are some approximation. But main of the trees which are standing along the streets or roads are located on the map, and of course the data can be used for calculation. What is important that of course there are different level of access to the application, but mainly everyone who can put the address on some kind of software can find the information about the building and can make some export from the data. Of course, it should be decided what kind of the data should be exported and what time of the data had to be exported. And of course, the data can be sent by email or downloaded directly from the application. As I said, there are different level of access because the audience have different access than the offices of the Poznań offices. And of course, there are some statistics. So I think the biggest part of the downloaded files are the SketchUp files, and there are some DVG files too, DWG files, AutoCAD files. And you can see that there was 25,000 of the downloads, and the downloads was concerning the over 4 million buildings, which means that till now the whole Poznań, the world map was downloaded 35 times. Of course, it doesn't mean that the map as a map, but the plenty of the object means that the traffic in the downloading is quite huge in that area. Of course, the example of use, I think, are quite obvious. So urban planning, architectures, there are some real estate experts which are involved in the activities. Of course, the planning activities are important. The data are important for planning activities. For education too, of course, there are some people who are just curious, just want to see how does it look like and check the information. So this is the example of use. Of course, the database is so wide and there is so many information that, for example, the historicals can find the previous pictures from the previous years. As I said, that you can find the information, the pictures from the 1940s, so during the World War II. So I think the examples of use is just examples, and the possibility to use the data is quite wide. And how often the data are changed? Of course, it depends on the information, because the buildings are, for example, actualized every week, and of course it depends what are the needs. Of course, the IoT layer is updated every 1 minute, so of course there are some additional changes. So in case of the point of close, if you are thinking about terrain, about the ground, of course it's not so required to do it every day, so it's done for example more or less 1 a year, or one every 2 years, it depends. And of course, the way of the updating should be connected with the needs. If we need some fresh information, like for example, with the state of the air in the Poznań, or the environment in the Poznań, of course, it is done minute by minute. But as I said, in case of the building, the changes are not so often, so only the changes during the year have to be implemented. Required resources. You can see the plenty of different things which are used. I mean, the application and the software which is used for the application. There are some use of the open source sources, and some commercial sources and tools to use it. We just have the information that daily there are 4 people involved in the activity, which is connected with the updating, with the analysis, development. But additional, there is several people who are just putting the data, so preparing the data. And I think one of the good ideas from the developers of the software of the application is that there should be some way of avoiding outsourcing of that information in that case, because the team is trying to focus on the activities, and the Poznań, the GeoPost want to have the qualified employees who can make the changes, work on the map on their own. So all the activities are insourced in the company, in the GeoPost, and we're not trying to do it outsourcing, because in that case, the flexibility is not as high as required. I think that's all from my part. If you have any questions.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing any questions in the chat just now. I think for me, the main question here, Victor, is what has been the main use of the GeoPods model when it comes to sort of a more mobility angle?
Well, I think it was the zone is I think, because I'm not sure, because it was so long ago that I don't know that. But from my point of view, I think it was important just to have the information about the zoning of the location of the building. And after that, when it was prepared, it was developed, and there are some additional needs, and of course the GeoPost wanted to answer them. Then, of course, there are some, let's say, marketing materials rather than required data for architects or for developers. But of course, it's the mix of the data. So of course, the professional people, professional users can use the data. But on the other hand, the people who just want to see the map or check data can do it. And of course, the access is open for that.
Great. Marco, is there anything else?
Yeah, it was clear enough to me. I don't have question myself, so I think I will just give floor. And thank you very much, Victor, for this presentation.
Thank you.
And I will just give a floor to our project coordinator, Maria.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marco. Thank you all for your presentations. We really had some insightful and engaging presentations. I've taken note of a few key points from today's session that I would briefly like to go over, very briefly indeed. Well, first of all, to take extra care for invisible people. Wim, I really liked the word invisible. And I also noted down that we should keep in mind that data does not tell the full story. And this is also very important. You also need perceptions, emotions, reasons for resistance, etc. So thank you very much for pointing this out. Transparency is very crucial, especially when handling citizens' inputs. And Budapest SUMP definitely proved that. So as highlighted by Marco, early and ongoing political engagement is also very crucial. But one of the most challenging issues in sustainable mobility planning is reconciling what the citizens want with what society needs. And be careful of those being out of tune because they might mess things up. Okay, Thessaloniki Smart Mobility Living Lab provided us a different aspect of stakeholders' engagement from the point of view of data sharing. I think a key takeaway is that we need to provide added value services and open access to build trust, especially when engagement of private companies is concerned. And I would actually extend this to Poznan's 3D model as well. And I think Jose will allow me to paraphrase what he mentioned about exposure and criticism being dangerous. So I would just say, don't be afraid to get exposed and receive criticism. This is part of the value creation process. I hope you can all agree with that. So to wrap up our webinar, thank you all so much for being here. The presentations are going to be published on our project website. This is the first of our 5 webinars, so please stay tuned. And thank you all once more.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.